Welcome back with the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Jason Balin, Hard Money Bankers, co-hosting Horowitz Equity Warehouse. Back in studio, Joe Downs from the Bellrose Group. Definitely looking forward to a segment that Ian and I love doing. It's called The Deal That Changed Your Life. We get a very good response on this. We had Joe on his own episode a few weeks ago. Definitely dropped some awesome bombs. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check that one out. Joe, welcome back to the show. Maybe just do a real quick intro. If you have a deal, maybe a good deal, maybe a bad deal, but certainly a deal that changed your life, would love to hear it.
As easy as this sounds like it should be, I don't like this question. So I feel like I'm in the middle or the beginning of one that hopefully is a life changer. Am I allowed to talk about that? Or does it have to have already happened?
Nah, dude, whatever you think is going to change your life. This is your 5-minute segment. Let her rip.
Okay, so it's a distressed debt deal then. We bought $115 million of UPB, unpaid principal balance, from, I won't say the name of the bank, at maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And so it was roughly 2,500 loans. And they were, so we're buying just charged off, defaulted, loans from second mortgages, residential second mortgages. And these were, I won't say what we typically pay, but these were, there was a little more hair on these than we normally buy. But it was hair according to the bank, right? So the lender looked at these as even more distressed. And I'm being a little cagey, I know that, but we didn't see it that way. So we saw it as an opportunity to buy what we normally buy with a little more hair, but it wasn't really going to affect us as much as they thought. So we're buying that at 20% of what we normally buy at. So it was a 20% discount or 80% discount on significantly discounted paper already. So for us, and that doesn't sound that interesting, right? Just on its face, like, oh, good for you. Screw you. Have a nice day. If there's a lesson to be learned in it, it's being able to see things differently or pulling back a few more layers, right, of a deal or, of the proverbial onion, and just looking at things differently. And that's all we did. So the lender, the bank presented us with, hey, would you guys buy this? Because it's like what you normally buy, except I'll tell you what the hair was there. Some of them are out of stat, right? So in a default, Jason, I feel like I was focused on Ian in our other interview, and Jason, this is more your world. So when you tie somebody up with a loan, you've got the asset and the borrower, right? Yep. We in some of these loans, and a healthy amount, a healthy portion of these 2,500, you have, depending on the state they live in, they're out of stat, or at least for the moment, they're out of stat, meaning the statute of limitations for me to go after them to get them to pay on that loan, for me to legally go after them to get them to pay that loan, suit on note, I can't do. But that doesn't mean that the lien isn't attached to the real estate. And what the lenders don't realize is that's good enough, because the borrower is living in the property and they don't want to lose the property, right? So they can lose the property through the threat of foreclosure, whether I sue them personally on the note, regardless. So the lender looked at that and said, this isn't worth the same. And I said, you're right. It's worth more to us at that price. So it's just being able to understand what leverage you have, right? From a lender's perspective, the bank's perspective, their leverage was gone. And from when out in the real world, where the rubber meets the road, on paper, the leverage was gone, but not in the real world. The real world is, I don't want to lose my house. Now, we don't foreclose a lot. So it's not like we're a foreclosure shop, but the leverage is still there. The thought of it, the threat of it is still there. So that's a deal that that theoretically will change our lives very, very meaningfully. It's allow me to buy a lot more storage.
Well, and also, the other lesson is their hair is different than your hair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think hair left anymore.
Yeah. So what, the hairy part of that deal to you or to them was way different than the hairy part. They just cared, that they couldn't collect on, a judgment. In that particular case, and say, okay, well, I don't even care about that part anyways. And I see that all the time, right? You have a platform that works for you. Somebody else's business model is completely different. And to them, it's like, this shit's worthless. To me, it's like, hey, this is gold. Like, this isn't no problem. At the right price, I got no problem. So I mean, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very smart point of, they put themselves into a box that they didn't necessarily need to get into, or their rules inside their company don't allow them to do it. And I think the fact that you guys even recognize that there's an additional opportunity is deal changing, it's life changing, because that means you're learning from all your other lessons. And guys, if you don't think Joe had lessons, go check out the other episode where he talks about, having a bar and having some issues, right? So I think that's a very interesting fact.
I could do a whole episode of lessons. No, yeah, it's the from being in the business for so long, we created a term actually called emotional equity. So a lot of the seconds we buy, there's no equity in the home for the homeowner or us, right? But we buy them and we pay a price for those loans, which on paper look worthless, right? But we know there's emotional equity, right? You don't want to lose your home. You don't want to move. You live in the neighborhood. It's embarrassing. You live in the neighborhood. Maybe your kids go to that school, right? Your township school. You don't want to have to move, upset your life, cost money to move, right? Moving isn't easy to do. So it's easier to keep your home. And that's what we do with it. That's why we don't foreclose. We keep people in homes. We don't foreclose on them. We just work out ways for them to stay. But because we've been doing that for 15 years, we know what the value of emotional equity is, right? That people are tied to their homes. Is everyone? No. Some people could care less, then move on, whatever. But the vast majority of people took out a second mortgage because they were doing something in their house, or maybe to buy their house, to improve their house. They want to be in that house. They want to be in that home. It's their home. And lenders, banks don't understand the value of that. And that's really the story, is that we understood the value of that. Okay, so you took away one of my pieces of leverage, but not the important one, right? Mm-hmm. If you flip it and they're all wiped clean from the house, and now I can sue them on the note. Well, that's credit card debt. That's all that is. I'm not interested in that. Yeah, there's no attachment at all to that, right? The house is gone. There's nothing left for me now. What's my threat now?
Yeah,
sue you. It costs money to do it. So they just didn't understand that the leverage was in the actual the note being tied to the house still, not in the inability to sue.
I mean, banks are guarantor heavy, and all the rest of us are collateral heavy. That's what we care about. Like you said, emotional collateral or physical collateral, and that's what it's about. And listen, on their end, at that size portfolio, when they're just looking at numbers, they don't have direct connections. They don't know. It's a different space. I mean, you'd be so surprised. I learned that very easy. I learned that years ago when I was raising capital, and the first question that every private investor asked me is like, why won't these people just go to a bank? Like, these guys all have good credit you're working with. They have lots of cash they're willing to put in. They have good balance sheets. And it's like, banks don't get this space, and that's okay. Or they don't have the flexibility. I'm not saying they're not in the space. They don't have the flexibility. They look at things. I mean, I've done loans for borrowers that owned $1 million in free and clear real estate and needed $100,000 to clear up a few construction projects that he had between tenants. And, his credit was 670 instead of 680 or whatever it needed to be. And whatever the case is. And the bank was like, he went to Wells Fargo and they were like, no. And he was like, and I was like,
670 is not 680. Sorry.
Yeah. Or whatever the example was in that case.
Yeah.
One of the cleanest deals I've ever done in my life. Right. And he was like, I can't go down this road anymore. Like, and I'm like, you sure you want to pay our high fees for this? And he was like, yeah, I can't go down this road. I need this capital quicker. I'm like, okay. But point being is what's important to somebody might not be important to anybody else. And
well, because you're dealing in an opportunity cost space in that regard, right? So what does he have the time to go to a lender to deal with all that?
That's right.
So full proctology, what isn't he doing when he's doing that? And what's the guarantee? What's the guarantee of success from the lender? 80%, 20% chance it still fails. Right. Yeah, so that's the value you provide. You provide quick answers. I know Ian is like a same day turnaround guy, right? With an answer.
Yeah.
Right. Your company. Right. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean Ian Horowitz.
No. Yeah, I get it.
So that you guys provide speed, reliability, right? Costs more, but I can price that in. Right. So it's, same things. That just makes sense.
I think the learning lesson out of this additional conversation, this has been one of the best deals that changed my life, is have tools in the toolbox and know what tools apply to where. And you guys are talking about all these different abilities to apply tools and utilize them for the right situations. And I think that's what's very important. And we hear that a lot on a lot of our episodes. Joe, where's the best place people can find you on the internet? They want to learn more about what you're doing and check out what you guys got going on.
Yeah, I love helping people out. You can just email me, joe@bellroseam.com. That's BELROSE, A as an asset, M as in management.com. Or you can find me on our website, bellrosestorategroup.com.
Great. We will get that in the show notes. And guys, Joe has provided value once again. If you got any value out of this, please feel free to share the show. It's the best compliment we can give our guests, and we'll catch you all on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.